Welcome to A Course in Miracles, Workbook Lesson 196. It can be but myself I crucify. Now, this follows on from Workbook Lesson 195, which says, love is the way I walk with gratitude. So gratitude being the way, and the way is a really inward step into the silent abyss of the self, which is love. And so the way of love is through gratitude. The very opposite of gratitude is crucifixion. So Workbook Lesson 196 says, it can be but myself I crucify. Now, to a person trapped in duality, this will make no sense. To a person trapped in duality, of course, this is a lesson spoken by a person who's a victim, will say, hang a second, no, I haven't crucified myself. I haven't hurt myself. The world has hurt me. There's a world out there. There's other people out there. They've hurt me, and I have nothing to do with it. And sometimes it may even seem that way when a young child is hurt by a cruel society, an abusive parent, or whatever the case may be. And one wonders, what has that child, that innocent child, done to bring forth such cruel experiences? In my own life, at the age of 6, when I came to South Africa as a young refugee, I went through the most intolerable cruelty at the hands of racist South Africans because I was darker skinned and therefore considered not white, even though I'm from Europe. Shows you how ignorant and stupid that society was. And I was beaten up so badly on my first day of school that I spent 6 months in a hospital because I caught a whites-only bus. And one may say, but hang a second, what did this young, innocent 6-year-old do to deserve such intolerable cruelty? Well, this young 6-year-old body-mind identity is everything but innocent, because in its past life, it was one miserable motherfucker. We don't believe in the past lives, do we? So then what explains it? Is God cruel? Is the world evil? Or is there something happening behind the scenes that we don't see? Because when I look back onto that life, I realize how beautifully I set up those intolerably cruel lessons before I came into form this time round, so that I would not remain asleep, so that through the adversity of the experience, I had no choice but to find a better way. And at first, I'd say for the first 30 years of my life, the better way was the better way in the world. Make money, more power, more fame, more authority. Didn't make me any happier. Gave me a lot of power and had developed skills to protect and defend myself and equip myself with academia and qualifications that made me a very powerful and rich young businessman. Didn't make me happy. And only after the death episode at the age of 33, when my reawakening started, that I start to realize through the practice of forgiveness how beautiful these adverse lessons were indeed, because they showed me what I was through the experience of what I'm not. The neti neti, advita vedanta. So this lesson wouldn't make sense to a person trapped in duality, because they cannot and will not and refuse to see the bigger picture. It can but be myself I crucify. This is a fact. When this is firmly understood and kept in full awareness beyond human consciousness, consciousness is always conditioned. Consciousness, we exist in consciousness. Our body mind doesn't have consciousness. Our brain doesn't have consciousness. We exist in consciousness. Consciousness is another word for dreaming mind, dream activity. And consciousness requires focus. And focus requires objectification. And to objectify something, to name something, needs programming. Consciousness is the realm of programming. Awareness is the softening, the letting go, the wiping clean the slate of programming. And so between consciousness and awareness, we have bridge consciousness or conscious awareness. And that is when the mind starts to become aware of being aware while it's still conscious of itself as a body. And so when this is firmly understood and kept in full awareness, it's because now we go beyond identification. So when you keep us in full awareness, you will not attempt to harm yourself ever again, nor make your body slave to vengeance. You will not attack yourself. And you will realize that to attack another is but to attack yourself. Why? For you realize you, as everybody else, but the you, the real you, the I in you, the I am in you, that which dreams, has dreamt every single character in the universe, all 8 billion of us on this planet. And so, although you're viewing your dream of the universe from the you localization, as you awaken to the self which is dreaming, the part of the self which is awake, because the part of the self is asleep, dreaming mind, ego mind, a part of itself is awake, Christ mind. You awaken to the awake part. You awaken into Christ mind. Now you realize this is all me. Every single character in this dream is a part of my I, the dreaming mind. Even this localization from which I view this dream. Because I can only, the localization is only aware of its own perspective. It's like a camera. I can imagine watching a screen with hundreds of little cameras, like security cameras over a shopping mall. This localization is one of those little cubicle cameras. The dreamer sees all those little cameras on the screen, all whatever, 8 billion cameras on the screen. From a camera's perspective, it can only see the one view. From the observer's perspective, it sees all 8 billion views and beyond, sees the entire universe and knows it's the activity of its dreaming mind. But when you awaken to self, you no longer, although you may only see from this perspective, you now know from a collective Christ mind consciousness. And now you know that whatever you're vibrating at is either in acceptance of or resistant to. If you're resisting, you're attracting more resistance, more to resist. If you're vibrating in gratitude and extending gratitude, what do you attract to you? Gratitude, love. When you have an attack thought about yourself, when you shoot yourself down, the world responds. When you love self, and you can't love, so how do you love yourself? It's absurd. It's bullshit, self-help nonsense. There's no such thing as love yourself. Look in the mirror and tell yourself you love yourself. You're just fucking mad. You can't do that. It's just stupid bliss bunny shit. Don't do that. That's just for bliss bunnies and idiots. You can't love yourself. Look in the mirror, love yourself. No, look in the mirror, accept it. Accept that. Okay, that was a manifestation. I fucked up. I should have made a 7 foot tall, blah, 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 blah. I made it that. Okay, that's what I have. Accept. Now know that beyond that appearance is the self. Love that. And how do I love that? It is love. I can't love it. It is love. So I'm grateful for that. And gratitude is an extension of love. Gratitude is love extended, known through this body mind. And so when you can be grateful for this, what are you attracting? More to be grateful for. That on its own ends all ideas of law of attraction. Stop it there. Stop trying to attract anything. Just be grateful, and what will be will come. Imagine you put your imagination to it, put your fantasy to it, and you can vision board it and get all excited about it and sing kumbaya and eat, pray, love and do gratitude stuff, but it's false because it's coming from the ego's need. And what are you going to get? You may get that stuff, but it's going to make you miserable. So you won't attack yourself anymore. You'll catch yourself before you have a negative thought. Oh, you stupid ass, or you're not whatever, you're not good looking, you're not tall enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not this, you're not that. You never stop. Whoa, no self-body judgment. No judgments about the past, no judgments about the future, no judgments about anyone, just gratitude. And if I attack someone else, if I belittle someone else, if I try to bully someone else, if I try to control someone else, what is it? Who tries to control others? Those that are out of control. Who tries to micromanage everything? Those that are completely out of control. Completely out of control. This is psychology 101. You don't need to be a genius, Course in Miracle, non-dualist, psychic guru, Shwama dude to figure this out. It's just obvious. Study any psychology book and you'll realize it. And it's cruel. They don't go around to someone who's just been horribly abused or gone through a horrible car accident or had some physical abuse or attack and say, oh, what were you thinking that made this, that attracted this into your life? That's not gentle. That's not the way of peace. That's not the way of the Christ. That's the way of an ignorant fool who thinks they're special because they've labeled themselves something that doesn't exist called spiritual. Spiritual is just a bullshit excuse for no engagement. And to think you're special because you're following a set of dogmatic spiritual blah, blah, blah nonsense. That's not real. It's just another illusion. Be compassionate. Be kind. Offer a hand. And show a better way to be, as opposed to point out other people's errors. If you're pointing out other people's errors, you're in judgment. And even though you think you're a 7th level, whatever, spiritual bunny from the 27th galaxy, from whatever Palladian wagga wagga bullshit bliss bunny hell you come from, you're just deluding yourself. It's a psychosis. You need pills. Come see me after the show. I'll feed you something. It's all you. And so when someone's going through whatever they're going through, compassion, don't empathize. Empathy, bliss bunnies, is bullshit. Empathy means ego, feeling what they're feeling. And so they're suffering, now you're suffering, now you're both stuck in the mud. Compassion steps above the battlefield, reaches out with its hand and says, if you're ready, I'll pull you out of there, if you're ready. But I ain't diving in there with you. I ain't going to feel what you feel. I can't have compassion. I understand what you're going through, but it's not real. Let me pull you out of it. At the same time, there's no point in beating them up and saying, hang on a second, you're suffering, because what were you thinking before you, imagine saying this to a woman, what were you thinking before you were raped? Man, you need a bullet in the head for saying something like that, if you're that kind of bliss bunny idiot. So, Luigi, what did you do when you were 6? What were you thinking when you were 6 years old, when a bunch of racist white supremacists threw you off a bus for being too dark? What were you thinking? I was thinking, I wonder what school's going to be like, and I'm hoping to make some new friends. The self, though, programmed the experience. Had it not gone through that experience, who knows whether I would have awoken to self in this life or not. What's awake to self? The realization of what I am. It doesn't change the character. It's not going to make me all spiritual. Spiritual bullshit. You will be free of the insane belief that to attack a brother saves yourself. And boy, did I become that. So because of the attack and the abuse and the bullying as a small child, by the time I was in my mid-teens, I was vicious. By the time I was in my 20s, I was dangerous. Fuck, beyond dangerous. That Born Ultimatum stuff looks like candy floss comparison to the shit we South African ex-special whatever we were used to get up to. Life meant nothing to us then. And we had skills, and we had vengeance, and we were angry, and we were afraid. So there was nothing we wouldn't do if you threatened us. Guys like me were just one TikTok away from boom. Good thing this cell phone things weren't around those days. Would I shove them up many Uranuses back in the day? Didn't give a shit. But through the grace of God, the patience of his inspiration, his intuition by spirit, willing to let go, surrender, find a better way, I was released. By grace, I am released. By grace, I shall release. And so the need to attack, defend, stopped. Defenseless innocence became the way. And you will understand that in your brother's safety, the world's safety is your own. And in the world's healing and your brother's healing is your own, because when you heal, you will see the world healed. If you don't see a healed world, you're asleep. But you can say, but Lou, the world's a shit place. Look at all the wars and stuff going on. Because that's what you're focusing on. Focused attention is consciousness. Consciousness is dreaming mind. When you awaken to self, the television doesn't go on, the radio doesn't go on, and you're not burying your head in the sand. Remember, that's just a stupid concept. No ostrich buries his head in the sand. If he did, he'd suffocate. Places his head on the sand, asks to the wind. The sand doesn't get in his eyes. You're just not facing the illusion anymore. And so what happens? You're drawn to the beauty, the gentleness, the kindness of this world. And you now realize the world, the hell of this one hell of a play, is going to play itself out. And it's not your function to play every role. You play the role you're assigned to play. Perhaps you will not, at first, not understand how mercy, forgiveness, limitless, and with all things held in its sure protection, can be found in the idea we practice today. It may, in fact, appear to be a sign that punishment can never be escaped, because the ego, under what it sees as threat, is quick to cite the truth to save its lives. And there's some really good books out there, good books, filled with lies, to protect the truth of the ego, which is just bullshit illusion. Yet it must fail to understand that the truth it uses thus. But you can learn to see these foolish applications and deny the meaning they appear to have. Give me an example, Lou. The fear of God. I don't fear any man, but I fear God. You're fucking asleep. You have no clue what you're talking about. How can you fear love? You fear not understanding what God is. The God man is made, the God of religion, is not God. The God of unconditional love cannot be written about, because that which is nameless cannot be named. Cannot be named, cannot be understood. And thus, do you also teach your mind that you are not an ego? When you truly see, to understand, and I know a joke about the word, to understand means to stand under the transcendence. But you have to first understand before transcendence. Now, there's 4 paths to awakening. There's Jnani, the course, the path of understanding, intellect. There's devotion, bhakti. There's the way of service. And then there's the complete and total dedication to God. Very rare lives. The Ramana Maharishis, Jesus did that. But we who are trapped in trying to understand have to understand before transcendence comes, because the paradox is you need to get a concept to override the previous vengeful, fearful of God concepts to the love of God, the unconditionality of God concepts, before transcendence really happens. We're so afraid to go there because we think if we go there, we have to all become bliss bunnies and blah, 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 give everything up and wear Jesus sandals and pretend to be so holy. That's the worst thing you can do. Because now you set up a template that cannot be sustained. Unless you were born a child of a librarian and a classical music artist, and you were raised in a tea garden doing botany for a living, and the worst thing that's ever happened to you is you unfortunately stood on a butterfly at the age of 6 and you haven't gotten over yourself. If you're one of those gentle people in this world, well then, yes, perhaps for you, that would be so. But for the rest of us that grow up getting the shit kicked out of ourselves and have to fight for everything since day dot, and life is just about survival, you have a different perspective. And now are you expected to now be all skeinheilig, holier than thou? No. Be thyself knowingly. Be authentic. You don't require to pass a qualification on gentleness and good manners before you awaken to self. Whoever told you that's true is talking shit. By awakening to self, by realizing the limitless within ourselves, that punishment is illusion, that we're not a body mind. If we are spirit, we cannot punish, we cannot be punished, because what is spirit? Pure energy. You reprogramming you. So you're preparing yourself for the transcendence that happens. You don't awaken. The self that dreams awakens. You transcend in understanding what? You don't exist as this. You exist as the essence energy, the I am, the Christ in self. The Christ in you exists. And the Christ in you returns to the Christ itself. You, idea, identity, dissolve, never to have ever existed at all. And that scares the bejesus out of everybody. Why? Because you want to be remembered and you want to go back to spirit world and hug your doggy and love your mother and your uncle and your father and your mother and all the people that you loved. And you want to be remembered for all your heroic challenges on this planet Earth and all the good you did. Well, when you awaken to self, there will be no memory of planet Earth, of you ever having existed in this life or any of the previous ones you appeared to appear in, or any universe. You will only know light as self, and self is love, and love is peace, and peace is joy, and joy is God. All of it. That's all you'll know, for you'll be the knowing of that which is God. There'll be nothing more and nothing less. And that people don't want. They want to know God, but they want to know their past lives too. They want to know God, but they want to do magic and do Reiki or some bullshit. It's all bullshit. I'm calling it bullshit. Quantum healing, cuck, magic. It's either real or it's bullshit. Real is awakened to self. Everything else is magic and bullshit. Have I upset some bliss bunnies now? Good. This channel's not for you. Move along. There's lots of other bliss bunny channels where people will channel Master whatever, Wagga Wagga Zork from Zeus, and he's going to tell you your future and going to tell you how amazing you're going to be and you're going to meet the perfect partner and blah, blah, blah. Everything will be wonderful until it isn't. Are you so spiritually special that you've got healing hands because the planet whatever is aligned with your whatever eye and it's not going to flow through you and you're going to heal? That's a whole lot of shit. Nonsense. You're just as cooked as those cooked scientists who only believe atoms are real and that atoms hold consciousness. Or the ways in which the ego would distort the truth. I'm not going to deceive you longer when you awaken to self. You will not believe you are a body. You may still be operating from this perspective. And so if you do not believe you're a body, you don't believe you can be crucified. And you will see that within today's idea, the light of resurrection, looking past all thoughts of crucifixion and of death to thoughts of liberation in life. And what is liberation? It's the unadulterated, unbridled, perpetual, permanent, extension of the light we are, the infinite light of awareness. Today's idea is one step we take in leading us from bondage, and what's bondage? Physical body, to the state of perfect freedom, awareness. Let's take a step today that we may quickly go the way salvation shows us, taking every step in its appointed sequence, because it is a sequence appearing through time. So the eternal now is no sequence because it's always present. But when you take the eternal now and stretch it like a chewing gum, it seems to have a sequence, beginning, end. But in truth, push it back into one, and it's one, no sequence. So taking every step in its appointed sequence, as the mind relinquishes its burdens one by one. Burdens, obstacles to peace. And what are obstacles to peace? Unforgiven thoughts. And where do they come from? Our desires for, and based on expectations. We desire for fantasy. And those fantasies burn our butts because they don't turn out what we want them to be. And so we're disappointed. And our disappointments turn into our unforgiven thoughts. So what's an unforgiven thought? Born of expectation. And yet it's the desire for the things that disappoint you and kick you in your Uranus and light up your third eye that make you realize, oh shit, I didn't want this in the first place. I'm not a body, I am free. I'm still as God created me. What the hell was I thinking when I dreamt up this dream that never actually existed at all? Yeah, smacking you now between the eyes. Oh shit, I've done this to myself. It's not time we need for this. It's but willingness. We need to be willing to be proven wrong because we've imagined or we've bought into dogma and beliefs and stuff we've read or been taught. And we've never sat with self and realized as above, so below. There it is. Silent stillness, it all comes. I had to study so much and many years of studying and 2,500 books read to do what? To get to the realization I never needed to read a single book if I just sat down and been at peace. But I wasn't ready to sit down and be at peace when I was younger because there was all this energy that needed to be spent. Okay. Will I need to do this again? Damn no. No more. For what would seem to need 1,000 years can as easily be done in just one instant by the grace of God when you're willing. If you're willing to let go of all the nonsense you believe is real. But you need to be willing to let it go. God's not going to rip it out of your hands. He's given you the free will, and free will means you need to hand it over to him. He's not going to take it from you. He's not going to take your illusion from you. He's not going to take your dream from you. He's going to keep calling you, and that calling is going to interrupt your flow, but he's not going to take it from you. You need to give it away. The dreary, the hopeless, the dreary, hopeless thought that you can make attacks on others and escape yourself has nailed you to the cross. Look at what religions has done over the millennia as they've attacked others. They've been attacked themselves. Look at what race groups have done when they've attacked others. They've been attacked themselves. Good society does. One country between the next, a war, attack, and then when they attack you back, you want to call it terrorism. This is the way of the sleeping, dreaming mind. Perhaps it seemed to be salvation, maybe while you won a little battle. It merely stood for the belief the fear of God is real. And how does that relate to the fear of God? Well, because you fear God, you want to make sure that your little body mind lives as long as possible. Because the fear of God is the fear of death and the fear of the unknown. And more importantly, the fear of being punished after death and serving some horrible lifetime imprisonment in some burning hell. And then when you started to awaken, you realize, oh shit, it means that if I awaken into Christ, awaken into God, it means I lose my identity and I won't remember everything. So I fear that. The fear of God is the most preposterous concept humans have ever thought up. It's like a wave in the ocean, fearing the ocean. It's just bizarre, the kind of shit religiosos can come up with. But they make good money, so maybe it was clever. That's how they made their money. And what is the fear of God but hell? Isn't it hell to fear God? To fear that which you're supposed to love and which is supposed to love you? Isn't that whole thought hell itself? Who could believe his father is his deadly enemy, separated from him and waiting to destroy his life and blot him from the universe without the fear of hell upon his heart? And this is what religion does. Imagine telling a little kid, Jesus died for your sins because you're a miserable fuck and you sinned. You're a sinner. Little Joe, 5 years old. You're a little fuck. Jesus died because you sinned. And he's like, but I ate my porridge. Look at all the starving children in Africa. That's why Jesus died on the cross for you. This is the shit this world teaches. But if you're a good boy, that big fat dude with a beard, no, not Luigi, the other one, Santa Claus, that dude, he'll give you a present at Christmas time. This is the shit we teach our kids. Such is the form of madness you believe. If you accept the fearful thought, you can attack another and free yourself. Because you attack others because you fear death, and then you fear death because you fear God. Until this form is changed, there is no hope. Until you see that this, at least, must be entirely impossible. How could there be escape? These are the old ways. Let them go. Human beings attack each other like cells in a body attack each other. And what happens when cells in your body attack each other? It's called cancer. And thus, what suffers? The host. Our dreaming Christ mind suffers when its characters war on each other, keeping themselves asleep within the dream, not allowing the dreamer to awaken to self. And until this is changed in our understanding, we're going to be asleep for a long, long time. The fear of God is real to anyone who thinks this thought is true. If you think you can attack and you can be safe, he would not perceive its foolishness or even see that it's there. So it'll never be possible to question it because it gets so trapped in the belief that this is true. To question it all, its form must first be changed at least as much as will permit fear of retaliation to abate, and the responsibility returned some extent to you. And so this is talking about taking the world from a dualistic perspective, us and them, us and God, to a oneness, unity consciousness, which is preparing us for unity awareness. It's non-duality, in other words. From there, you can at least consider if you want to go along this painful path, because you start to get glimmers of less painful up ahead. Until the shift has been accomplished, you cannot perceive that it is but your thoughts that bring you fear. And your deliverance depends on you. Your deliverance depends on you letting go of fear. And how do you let go of fear? You have to look at it and realize it is not real. Future expectations appearing real, or whatever acronym. But you have to realize it. You guys say, oh, I'm going to get rid of fear by facing fear. Say that. I'm going to get rid of my fear of lions by facing a lion head on. Yeah. You are going to be nice kitty litter in a few weeks' time. You face your fear by realizing what you fear comes from nonsense, comes from illusions, dogma that isn't real. Once you realize what fear really is, there's nothing to fear. Our next steps will be easy if you take this one today. From there we go, ahead quite rapidly. This is the collapsing of time. For once you understand it is impossible that you be hurt except by your own thoughts, surely the fear of God must disappear. It's not God doing anything to you. God's done nothing to you. Nothing has happened to you has been done by God. No, it was God's will. It was God's will that I fell off my motorcycle. No, it wasn't. It was my stupidity made me fall. God's will is that I awaken to self. That's it. But at least now when you realize I'm doing it all to myself, the fear of God punishing me disappears. You cannot then believe that fear is caused without, because now you realize I'm doing all of this. And God, whom you had thought to banish out of your awareness, can now be welcomed back, because he's no longer out to get you, out to punish you, out to put obstacles in your peace. It was all you. Now you can actually call on God with a holy mind and welcome him back into your holy mind, realizing he's never left. Because now I finally actually have God on my side in my understanding. He's always been there. On whose side is God when two nations go to war? He's on no side, because he's on the inside of everybody and everybody's inside him. It's not on which side does God take? It's who takes God's side. And if you took God's side, you wouldn't go to war. Salvation song can certainly be heard in the idea we practice today. Salvation song. Silent, no words. If it can be, but you crucify, you did not hurt this world, you've done nothing to it. And it's done nothing to you, and need not fear its vengeance and punishment. Nor need you hide your terror from the deadly fear that God, the fear of God, projection hides behind. So you no longer have to okay, so projection is now just going to disappear. It will dissolve slowly. Don't worry, the bottom of the world isn't going to just disappear. Skies are going to fall on your head. However, what happens next? ... The thing you dread the most is your salvation. You are strong, and it's strength you want. And you are free, and you are glad of freedom. You have sought to be both weak and bound, because you feared your strength and your freedom. Salvation lies in realizing your strength is God's strength, and your freedom is the Spirit of God's Spirit, which is forever free. We fear death to such an extent because the part of us that fears death is still that body-mind identity, believing in the identity. And yet we now know, everybody knows, everyone dies. 80 to 100 years, max. Maybe 105 if you're some sort of queen. But the ego is afraid of death because it's going to dissolve, and only all that remains is the self that has no fear, the self in which everything happens, the self which is awareness. And then there's an instant which terror seems to grip your mind so wholly that escape appears quite hopeless. When you realize once and for all that it is you fear, the mind itself becomes split and sees itself as split. When you realize, but I'm doing this all to myself, why am I still doing this? Your mind now splits into wrong-minded ego and right-minded right mind, which is now moving towards Christ mind, non-dual mind, unity awareness mind. Wrong mind then further splits into two, and it splits itself into a good character and a bad character, and these two are at war with each other all the time. The right mind goes into silent stillness, into pure awareness. It waits for you to abide in itself. The right mind now becomes unaware of the wrong mind. Why? Because the wrong mind is illusion. The right mind's awakening. The right mind accesses the awakened self, the awareness of awareness. And when you're in the right mind, you're only aware of awareness. You're not aware of illusions. And illusions aren't aware of awareness. The illusions are only, because of their fixation on form, because of their conditioning, can only be aware of the illusion they're aware of. And so when you realize all of this, the mind realizes the cat split. And now the observer kicks in. right-mindedness. And this had been concealed while you believed attack could be directed outwards and returned from outside to within. And it seemed to be an enemy outside that you had, an enemy outside you, you had to fear. And thus God outside yourself became your mortal enemy and the source of fear. This is how we thought, the vengeful God of religion. Now, for an instant, though, a murder is now perceived within you. It's perceived as my wrong mind, eager for your death, intent on plotting punishment for you until the time when it can kill at last. Now you're aware of this inner play. Now people try and decide between the two. There's no decision. There's just abidance, right-mindedness. Yet in this instant is the time as well in which salvation comes, because the right mind starts to take over. And it takes over through surrender. For the fear of God has disappeared. And you can call on him to save you from illusions by his love, by his awareness, calling him Father and yourself his Son. Because now you realize Son is just a word. Father is just energy, just source. And Son is just the extension of source. We're now starting to lose the personification. Father, Son dissolving. Source and source extension. Pray that the instant may be soon, today even. Step back from fear and make advance to love. There is no thought of God that does not go with you to help you reach that instant and go beyond it quickly, surely, and forever. When the fear of God is gone, and it has gone, tell yourself that, know yourself as that. There are no obstacles that still remain between you and the holy peace of God. How kind and merciful is the idea we practice. Give it welcome as you should, for it is your release. It is indeed but you. Your mind can try and crucify. Yet your redemption too will come from you, from your true self, which is the Christ, which is the extension of God's love. You are God's love. You are God's kingdom. You are that in which God abides. God is spirit, abides in you. You are spirit, you abide in God. One whole indivisible self, one whole indivisible source, one God, one life, oneness. Be you that knowingly. Stop there.